Spring Fever episode. Now, we've been talking about a mini-series on how to do it yourself turkey hunt out of state, right? So we've got this series broken down, and last week we talked about picking a place to hunt, and then this week we're going to talk about lodging. Now, when we start talking about lodging and how to decide what lodging type fits your hunt the best, it really goes back to that initial question I told you guys to ask yourself in the first video, and that is, what do you want to get out of this hunt? Are you looking for comfort, relaxation, and luxury, or are you looking for rough, tough, primitive style, bare bones, basic? Now, that's you've got your two ends of the spectrum here, and you've got to figure out, are you going to be here, or are you going to try to hit that somewhere in the middle? Well, this week we're going to look at one extreme to the other in terms of lodging. Now, I think I have actually done anything and everything that there is out there available for lodging, from staying in your truck to staying in hotels. I've even stayed at dude ranches before out west, and that's a pretty cool experience in itself. So I've done a little bit of everything, and so this one I'm pretty much an expert on. So when we look at this, the very first one I'm going to list is the one I think that everybody goes to right off the bat, and it's probably the worst one, okay? And that is staying in a hotel. In my opinion, most people that go, that's what they're used to. You're used to traveling with your family, you're used to going on vacations, and you're staying at hotels. So when we talk about traveling and you need a place to stay, hotels are the first thing that comes to mind. But hotels are not tailored to the hunter, okay? And I really think it's probably the worst choice. Now, here's some reason why. First thing is hotels, you've got, if you're splitting the rooms, you're trying to keep the cost down, and you're splitting rooms between you and a couple buddies, and you've got a room that's got, two queen-size beds, you really don't have your own space, and if your hunting partner snores like EP does or Dad does, you're going to go through earplugs. You're going to have more invested in earplugs than you are in the entire hunt. So that's one, and that's not that big of an issue. The second issue is having an actual kitchen. Most of the times when you go into these hotels and you've got this cheap room, you're not getting a full-blown kitchen to where you can go in there and actually cook, prepare meals and stuff like that. You're kind of restricted to eating out the entire trip, and that's not saving you any money there either. The other thing is in that kitchen, one of the most convenient things is the refrigerator and the freezer. If you do harvest a bird, it's best to get that thing cleaned, skinned out, and get that meat put in the freezer and get it frozen so it's ready to be transported back, right? So that's one of the major keys there. And especially if you've got a bird that you're thinking about, having mounted or something like that, typically you need to make sure you do your homework and you know how to skin that bird and have it ready to be, prepared, skinned and prepared for the taxidermist ahead of time. Freezing that entire bird is really kind of hard to do in that standalone freezer with a refrigerator. So when you look at the hotel, it's not that great of an option. The second one that I'm going to list is my favorite, and it is probably the most convenient. And honestly, that is just renting a house. If you can find a house to rent, you're so much better off. Now, you may be thinking, how is renting a house more cost effective? Well, if you rent a house and you split it between you and a couple buddies, it is going to be cheaper per night than what you pay for a hotel, or very, very similar in price. And actually, the houses that we rent on our hunting trips are way cheaper than, we're paying like $15, $30 a person a day versus staying in a hotel where we're paying about, $50 to $60 a person. So it's almost double. Renting a house gives you all the conveniences of home, right? You typically have your own bedroom, so you don't have to worry about bringing the earplugs for the snorer. You've got your kitchen that you can cook. You can prepare meals in, do whatever. You can, go out back and clean your turkey and take care of it. You can put that bird in the freezer and make sure that it's frozen solid and it's ready to be transported and make that journey home. So that is some great pros, to the house. Now, the other thing is, when I talk about renting houses, and depending on where you go, there are tons of houses that you can rent, especially out west, where you can actually pay the person who owns the house to hunt the property the house sits on. I've done this before. There are tons of bed and breakfasts out there, a lot of them out west. Those are the ones that I've done, not really, east of the Mississippi, but west of the Mississippi, there's a lot of bed and breakfast facilities that you can find that have access to several hundreds, if not thousands, of acres for you to hunt in the spring turkey woods. If you actually dig in, do some research, and you type in hunting bed and breakfast, they're going to start popping up. I've done this before. The first trip I ever hunted on Merriam's, and I just stumbled across this. I was looking for a place to stay, and I found one that, we rented the house, an entire house, and it had like 15 bedrooms or something like that. It was huge, but it was catered to the hunter. That was their biggest clients. You could actually rent just an individual bedroom, and then if you paid the extra fee, you could actually hunt the farm ground that was connected to the house. And that's what we did. And that particular house had 1,200 acres connected to it. And I can remember the first night we pulled into camp and we were getting all of our gear out of the truck, the birds were gobbling over on like 3 ridges over from the house we were staying. And it's private land. So if you're wanting to do this yourself and, you're not kind of real keen on hunting public ground, this might be an option to where you can actually get on private ground and have your house and everything right there on site. And again, it is relatively cheap to do. So that's something else to look at. By far, renting a house is the best, is my favorite thing to do. And even if you're even east of the Mississippi, like Florida, you get down south, there's a lot of condos, there's a lot of houses down there that you can rent, because they're vacation areas. Last year when I was planning on hunting Florida, and that's what we were going to do. We had found a condo to rent, and we were going to split that about 5 ways, and then go out and hunt public ground. So that was honestly the cheapest route, or it wasn't the cheapest route, but it was a cost-effective route that we decided we were going to do. Okay, so that's pretty, that's pretty convenient. Like I said, you've got all of the commodities of home. Now, if we start looking at the primitive, most cost-effective way, is some sort of camping style, right? Now, my family, we love to camp, backpack, hike, things like that. And this isn't a lifestyle that's new to us, and it's something that we do all year long. If that's you, maybe you'd be extremely comfortable doing this. Now, it's cost-effective. If you stay at a campground and you pay for a tent site, you're paying like $20-25 for tent camping, okay, a primitive style lodging. Now, it's got its pros and cons too. Couple pros to it is, one, it's cost effective. It doesn't cost very much. You get the camping atmosphere with it, which kind of adds to the experience, right? I love to camp, so when I love to camp and I love to turkey hunt, it's like double the love there, right? So it just adds to the experience. It might be something that you're interested in. If you stay at a campground, they're going to have bath houses, shower houses, things like that, to where, yeah, you're camping, but you can, walk into a shower house and you can get a shower or whatever. So those are key things that are great to have on site. Now, the cons to the primitive style, and there are cons to all of these, but the biggest cons to the primitive style lodging here, and we're talking about, camping, there's different styles of camping. You can do this by staying in a tent, or you can pull, a camper in there, an RV or whatever. Now, the more luxury you have there, the more expensive it's going to be. That's up to you. However, if you're doing it, in a tent, one of the biggest cons, and this goes with the camper as well, you're really subjective to the weather. And I found this out the hard way, and one example of this was our Wisconsin hunt last spring. Camping, not a big deal. Camping in, a monsoon, not a great experience. it rained for 3 days, and the wind was like 30 to 40 miles per hour a lot of the time, and I was staying in a tent. I told Dad if he could imagine sleeping in a potato chip bag, that's what it was like every night. I mean, it was loud, the wind was whipping, the tent was, flopping back and forth. It was a little rough. Didn't get a whole lot of sleep. That wasn't the only thing. My tent stayed dry. However, my hunting clothes did not. So when we were out hunting in this rain, because I drove all the way there, I might as well hunt, right? Or come back home. So we're out there hunting in the rain. We couldn't get our clothes dry. And that was the biggest downfall to that entire primitive style hunt, was we just couldn't get our clothes dry. We tried hanging them up in the truck, but the sun was never out. It was cold. The lows at night were getting down into the 30s, and we just couldn't get our clothes dry. And every single day we were getting up and we were putting on wet clothes, and it just wasn't comfortable, right? So that was a major downfall. And we had thought, you know what, we'll just go find a laundromat, throw our clothes in it, get them dry for the day. But these places that we're hunting are so remote, the laundromat didn't exist. So that was just one of those things that, we just had to do with what we had to do. We had our shirts like laid up on the dash with the heater on high, trying to get our shirts dry and things like that. So that primitive style has its downfalls. The other thing to the weather, when you're talking about the primitive style, is your cooking environment. And I'll get into that next week. But when you're camping and that's your main lodging and you're staying in a tent, it's, you're cooking outside, and it rained and, stormed and everything else. And we couldn't keep our grills going. We couldn't keep our griddles going, things like that. So we had to resort to cooking inside the camper shell on Dad's truck. Now, that is also where Dad was sleeping on this trip. I stayed in a tent. Dad slept in the bed of his truck on an air mattress. Well, when you're in there, you're having to use that to cook, to stay out of the wind and the rain. You get a lot of fumes build up in the back of the truck. Dad probably lost some brain cells, but he's down so many we couldn't tell. And honestly, he dreams about food on a nightly basis. So I think he actually enjoyed having the aroma in the air. Probably made him feel more at home. So that was another downfall, though, for us, was, if the weather's bad, it's going to be bad. If the weather's great and you've got the weather to camp, it's probably the most fun experience there is. Okay. Now, if you want to go even more cost effective, and we've done this, and you can just simply stay in your vehicle, right? Now, there are pros and cons to each. Like I said, staying in the truck, it can be extremely comfortable. But again, the cons are you are subject to the weather. And again, just staying in the truck, it's cheap, but you don't have access to that bathhouse or that shower house like you would in an actual campground. And if you stay in the truck with a week with Dad, you're really ready to pay the $20 at the campground, So just some things to think about and to consider. And if you guys got more questions on, with more detail on some of this stuff, feel free to shoot me an email at springfevercustomcalls@gmail.com, and I'll get back with you guys as quick as I can. Like I said, I think I've stayed in everything from primitive camping to dude ranches, renting houses, hotels. I've did it all. So shoot me an email if you've got questions, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Be sure to stop by the website, check some stuff out. All of our products should be in stock right now, but they may not be for long. So get on there, check out the site, and remember, put your next long beard on speed dial with a Spring Fever Custom Calls. I'll see you guys next week.